It's time for the Onyx News. Extraterrestrials, time anomalies, dimensions, remote viewing, UFOs, UAPs, and USOs, ghostly encounters, abductions, Bigfoot, and more. Your end of the week news source for everything unexplained. Here is your host for the Onyx News Podcast, Margie K.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the program. We're here every Friday at 6 p.m. I'm your host, Margie K., and this is Onyx News on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network. And I'm hearing a double echo. Race, are you hearing that on your end? It's repeating.
I don't hear it.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, we're just going to have to deal with that. Okay. Well, first of all, this evening, I want to announce the winner of the April contest, which was the Into the Rabbit Hole contest, the best story. And that goes to Mr. James Bear. So congratulations, James. You're going to get a nice box of Onyx swag. And also, that story is going to be printed in the next issue of Onyx magazine. And of course, this issue just was released a couple of days ago. Get more information about that at unxnetwork.com. And it's a really good issue, and it's much longer than normal. So I know you're going to enjoy that. If you are an UNX subscriber, you get a digital copy of that for free. All right, this evening, my special guest is Constance Victoria Briggs. She's a metaphysical, spiritual, cosmic researcher and writer. She's the author of The Moon's Galactic History, a look at the moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth, and a number of other books. And with several of these books having thousands of entries, I would say that these are more of a textbook than anything else, and definitely good for researchers. And Constance has been on multiple programs. It's her goal to investigate the mysteries of the universe and how they connect to humanity. Constance and her family make their home in Southern California. Welcome to the program, Constance.
Hi, Margie. Thank you for having me this evening.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you for hanging in there while we were fighting with our technical issues, which I'm still having on my end. So this is going to be interesting.
Sorry.
So how is it in sunny California? Is it sunny today?
For the first time in a long time, it is dry weather. We're happy. It's sunny today, and it looks like, it's been raining a lot here. It's sunny today. It looks like it's going to be sunny for about a week and a half at least. So we're good.
Goodness. Well, that's good news, because I know you have been rained on and snowed on and everything. So,
yep. Mm-hmm.
It's been a little bit crazy. You've got a number of books, of course, we're going to talk about. And you got interested. Well, how did you get interested in the moon mysteries to start with?
Yeah. So, I started out and, as you told the audience in the introduction that, I was studying the metaphysics and writing about angels and spirituality. I had always had an interest in UFOs and extraterrestrials. I've always felt that we were not alone in the universe. And for me, the idea, for example, of UFOs flying around wasn't news. That was just something I knew, accepted, felt, moved on. But I was looking for the benevolent extraterrestrials. I thought maybe, since I had written a book on angels, I thought, I think there's extraterrestrials out there that may be trying to, connect with Earth and possibly trying to help us. I had heard that in passing information. in going through that kind of information, one day a book a book came across my desk, and I can't remember if someone gave it to me or how I came about it, but it was titled "Our Mysterious Spaceship Moon," and it was written by a ufologist by the name of Don Wilson. And even though I always felt that we weren't alone in the universe and there were UFOs everywhere and stories of extraterrestrial visitation, I had never considered that there may be something going on with our moon until I read this book a few years back.
Yeah, I know there's been a lot of speculation and theories about the moon, with one of them being that it is actually was actually placed there and is a gigantic spaceship. How do you feel about that?
So, actually, the spaceship, we call this the spaceship moon theory, or I call it the spaceship moon theory. It's my favorite theory of all of the ones that have come about as to how the moon came to be. By the way, our scientists have no idea. They have said they don't know where it came from. They've had these 5 amazing theories. None of them panned out, including the one I grew up with was the capture theory of the moon, being caught into Earth's gravity, and that one didn't pan out. Then they came up with the giant impact theory, also known as the big whack theory, where they said a planet hit Earth and the Earth's materials, flew out into space and formed the moon. Well, now if you go onto NASA's website, they said they think that that's how it happened, but they're not sure that, it's not definitive. So, um, the spaceship moon theory, out of everything I've heard, is my favorite because it really does answer a lot of the questions as to what may be going on with the moon. The idea behind the spaceship moon theory, and yes, I think it is a, a, a ship or a structure of some sort that was sent over here. But the idea behind the spaceship moon theory is that extraterrestrials out there in the others somewhere
Mhm.
created this thing, quite possibly to help stabilize the Earth so that life can flourish here better than it was, or what was going on with it. That's the theory, that if this was brought into Earth's vicinity, that was the reason. But of course, we don't know that for sure either. It's all theory and speculation. But I think we have to keep the conversation going. So I think that the moon was sent in here. It is a spaceship. And in another thought, there were 2 Russian scientists, after the Apollo missions were done. There were 2 Russian scientists that worked for the Soviets, and they concluded, and I think this is where the term was coined from. They concluded that the moon is a spaceship, and they wrote a paper and they put their reputations on the line when they came out, and they said, from looking at the Apollo missions data, that it seems that this is a spaceship. Now, what did they look at? They looked at the material that the moon is made up from. They said that it's made up of very hard metals. That looks like somebody put this thing together so that it could withstand the travels through a long journey through space and withstand radiation and medium bombardment. That if they were going to create a spaceship, that what the moon is made from what they discovered from looking at the samples, that's what they would have created, a scientist would have used to create a hard structure with. And they said that it looks like the moon is covered with this moon-like substance to make it appear natural, but it isn't. And they looked at the fact also, one of the things was that the moon rang like a bell.
Mhm.
Didn't really sound like a bell, it reverberated. And NASA scientists came out and said, we don't know why it's doing that when it happened. The Apollo astronauts crashed the ascent stage from the lunar module into it, and it rang a couple of times. They did it, and it reverberated. And they said the moon seems to be hollow, and anything, of course, if it's hollow, it's not natural. And so Another thing that those Russian scientists looked at was the fact that it was when a meteor hits the moon's surface, no matter how big it is, um, it's all the same. The craters are all the same size, and that shouldn't happen. So the scientists looked at some of this stuff, the Soviet scientists, and said, it really looks like it's something someone created. It looks like a spaceship. We think there's someone in it. We think that it has all of the supplies inside of it, engines and things to keep someone alive as it went on this long journey through space and was placed here.
So is the Earth's gravity then captured the moon, and now it's not under its own propulsion anymore? Is that what's going on with it?
You know, since that time, since that paper, there has been a lot of study, theory, and speculation. The thought is that it's not captured. In fact, it has been said that it's just too big for Earth's gravity to have captured it or be holding it, that this thing is independently there. Now, that may account for what the Soviet scientists were saying about there being engines in it and other devices that are continuing to make this thing run.
Well, that is fascinating.
Isn't it amazing?
Now, as far as ET goes,
Mhm.
let's go before you got interested in the moon. Did you have any ET sightings yourself or UFO sightings?
Yeah. So I have not I have not had any ET experiences as people who have had the abduction experiences and been
Mhm.
taken aboard a ship. I've had a lot of out of body experiences, and I've done a lot of traveling outside of the body, and I have seen a ship, I would say, a couple of times for sure. One was during an out of body experience, and um, I slip out of my body. I call it slipping out.
Mhm.
And in this particular night, or excuse me, day, I was taking a nap, and my little infant son was taking a nap, and I was traveling, and I came across in that travel, that astral travel, an amazing ship, something like I've never seen in any of the pictures before. It was glorious, and I was going towards it, and I was almost entering it, and I believe that this was real. Okay, for listeners who say, "Oh, it may have been a dream," it wasn't, because I constantly had out of body experiences, and this was a place that I was, and I went to move inside of it, and I was thinking, um, I hope my telephone doesn't ring and pull me back. I hope the phone doesn't ring. And sure enough, my husband called, and I was immediately snatched back into my
Oh,
body. And I missed going inside of it. And as far as I know, because we travel, excuse me, we travel and we don't always remember when we
mhm.
wake up where we went. But as far as I can remember, I haven't been back there. Um, I had another occasion that hit me not very long ago. So for years, I had this memory. This occurred when I was 9 years old, and I was riding in a car with my mom in Alexandria, Virginia. If anyone knows the area, she was driving, and she was a very nervous driver. She didn't like for the kids to make any noise. I was in the back passenger seat on the right, and I saw something in the sky, and it was circular, and it had lights flashing, different colored lights were flashing. And I remember very vividly looking at that thing and saying, "Oh, I wonder if that's one of those things." I suppose I had heard something about UFOs. And now looking back, my parents didn't follow these stories. So I don't know where I heard it. Maybe there was something going on at that time. Wasn't paying a lot of attention, but this thing was hovering. And I remember us driving by and me just looking at it. And I wrote it off in my mind as some kind of maybe a plane or something. But I always remembered it. And I was writing about the moon, and I was looking at someone's experience, and this guy was saying, "Oh, I saw something and it was hovering." And I thought to myself, "Oh, well, it wasn't an airplane. Airplanes don't hover." And then I went, "Oh, oh." And I spent the next few weeks almost getting a headache trying to figure it out what
Mhm.
it was, because I just couldn't admit to myself that I had seen something so vivid way back then. But the thing was hovering. There's nothing that does that. So that's I can say that I saw that. If there's anything else in this long life of mine, I don't remember as far as UFOs go. And I don't UFO watch. I keep saying I'm going to get some, of those cameras or goggles or whatever they're called,
Then
night vision goggles.
yeah.
Do it because I don't like to be outside by myself at night. So
Uh, get someone to
lately
go
I've been
with you.
it would be great. No, lately I've been thinking
Uh-huh.
about doing it. My husband goes hiking at like, really early. And I'm like, well, when he goes, I can go outside and, maybe I'll get something. But I have to tell you, I had an experience once. I used to think this was an angel, but now I'm more inclined to think it was an extraterrestrial because of the work that I'm doing. And because I feel like I get, and you'll know what I mean, Margie, I feel like I get downloads of
Mhm.
information. And you know, well, I was one of those kids in school that got bullied a lot, and I was one of the kids who couldn't accept it, take it, and I tried to end it all. During that process, uh, when I was out of it, I had taken all these pills, and I was just wanted to die. Someone came, so I saw what looked like a swirling cloud. And when it dissipated, there was a man standing there with he did have on what looked like a long white robe, but it had a high collar. And he was beckoning for me to come. And I just thought to myself, oh my God, this is what happens when you take a lot of pills. He looked very, very worried and concerned. And
Mm.
I thought, I didn't even move to go. I was so fascinated. And then he faded. I don't believe that that was a hallucination to this day. It was very real. And without naming the person or the entity, I do believe that I found a picture of him. And it looks to have been an extraterrestrial, I do believe, because what happened is I read an account of another woman who had the same experience. She saw a swirling cloud open, and there stood this being who had a very high collar, and someone had channeled a picture of this entity, and it had, I would swear, the same face that I saw. So I believe that was an extraterrestrial that I saw. And in my studies, I have recently learned that there are people who are doing the type of work you and I do, who are putting information out there that have had some kind of contact experience. And I believe that we have, although we can have angelic guides and people around us, we also have, I believe, a star family and guides around us. And some of us, I believe, have come into Earth to talk about this kind of a thing.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
It
that's my experiences. You asked.
Yeah. Well, I knew there was a story there, and I knew people would be interested in hearing it.
Yeah,
Um, it sounds like you had a near-death experience, and a lot of people who have NDEs also have contact with ETs. Do
yeah,
you think that you've been guided to do the work you're doing by ETs?
I do. I do. It's been really fascinating because every time I've thought in life that I've had an awakening, I have another awakening. It's been taking these,
Yeah.
like steps, learning about spirituality and God, and then angelic beings that are here to help, and doing an encyclopedia on that all those years ago, and then having I always had this memory that was not Earth, that did not occur on Earth, of standing in a light. I remember the light, and that
Mhm.
happened, and then I feel like other things were happening. It's too much to go into here, but I feel like I was getting this information and downloads, and finally it came to the point where I knew that I was connected to somewhere else. I knew I wasn't an angel born on earth. I said, oh, there's no way I'm an angel born on earth. I'm no angel, But in that process, my guides who had always given me, information, basically alluded to the fact that there were extraterrestrial beings around. And I thought, you guys, you've got to be kidding me. You're telling me that this was many, many years ago. There's,
Mhm.
aliens around, and they're like, yeah, and they gave me some information. And it started me on the path of trying to figure out, where this was coming from. And I ran across a book, and I will share it with you. That kind of sealed it for me, and I understood a lot better. It was called From Elsewhere by Scott Mandeliker, and he did his thesis on people living on Earth that he believed had come in to do work here, not just learn lessons. We come in to learn lessons too, but
Mhm.
also we have our missions. And one of the missions, and you know this, that is prominent right now, is for us to educate people that we're not alone in the universe, that we are a part of a galactic, even universal community, and that we are heading, or at least trying to head in that direction, and that they're here to help. And they're feeding people information to get it out to the masses. That's what I believe.
I agree with you 100% on that. That's the exact message that I get from my ET contacts as well. And do you think that things have ramped up lately, that there's more ET contact than usual and that people are waking up?
I think that things have definitely ramped up. I mean, we are seeing so much out there. So, I mean, as I said, I'm not out at night watching. I will be, I promise. And then I'll write another book. People are reporting seeing so many UFOs of all different shapes and sizes. It's stepped up from even the 1940s, when this is said to have all begun, which is not really when it all began. That's another story. We have
Right.
been visited forever, since the beginning of our written history and before. Extraterrestrials have been around, because why wouldn't they have been? They didn't just start to exist out there when we started. They are eons ahead of us, many of them. You know, um, Humankind is still pretty young and pretty new, and at least this physical body of humankind is new and living here. We come in, but anyway, there are ETs that have been around for forever. So, but in the 1940s, they stepped up coming. It appears because of our plans to use nuclear weaponry.
Yes.
And then lately, they've even stepped it up even more. People are seeing ships, and they're talking about having made contact with extraterrestrials, as I said. Sometimes they're being guided to send out information. And so I think that something is going to happen. I don't know how soon, but I think that there is something in the plan for our planet. And also, you hear a lot about us needing disclosure, disclosure, disclosure.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily believe that the government isn't hiding things, but I do believe that the extraterrestrials may be calling most of the shots as to when the masses will see them. You know, there was that I was watching TV one day, and you'll know this story. I was watching TV, and I heard the name Galactic Federation come on the news, and I rolled around. I was in my kitchen, and my whole family. I have two grown children and my husband. My whole family were around doing things. We were getting ready for dinner, and I couldn't believe they had. And I said they outed the Galactic Federation.
Hmm.
I knew about the Galactic Federation years and years and years ago. It wasn't a new term for me, but it was for my family, because we don't really talk. We haven't gotten into a Galactic Federation. But this writer, he's you know what I'm talking about. His name is He's Israeli, and I always have a hard time with his name. But he wrote a book, and he was a military and government official, and
Yeah.
he's old now, right? And he said, I have nothing to lose, basically. I have money, I have status, I have everything I need. I'm going to just tell you, there's people on Mars, and there's ETs on Mars, and they're working with people from our military or
Hmm.
Earth government, and but they said not to tell anybody because we're not ready, and they're called the Galactic Federation. People don't believe him. People think that
Yeah.
he made it up or that he did it to sell his books, and he said he doesn't need the money. But just the fact that he used the term Galactic Federation just blew me away.
There
Okay.
are a lot of terms, a lot of terminology, a lot of things coming out in the news lately that's being allowed to be released. So yeah, I feel like something big is on the horizon too. We do have to take a short break, and we'll be back right after these messages. Are you thinking about purchasing a wood-fired heating or cooking appliance but don't know where to start? The new book, Wood-Fired Heating and Cooking, will guide you through the process and make the decision much easier. Find out about wood stoves, wood-burning fireplace inserts, masonry heaters, cook stoves, brick ovens, and more. Learn about operation and maintenance, buying and storing wood, even how to make your own charcoal. A bonus section includes delicious recipes for cooking in a wood-burning oven, grill, tandoori oven, or smoker. The wise homeowner, prepper, or homesteader will have the ability to heat their home with wood when the power goes out or to save money on increasing gas bills. Wood-fired heating and cooking is available at Amazon. Visit www.woodfiredpub.com for more information. That's woodfiredpub.com. My book, The Kansas City UFO Flaps, covers cases that have occurred in Kansas City over the years. Kansas City has long been a UFO hotspot since before the year 1900. I cover many of these cases, starting with the airships in 1897. I cover a lot of cases and speak with actual witnesses. You'll see photos of UFOs and find out why this may be happening in Kansas City. And what is creating portals that could create interdimensional openings. Read about the events that we've held in Kansas City to discuss this and more. Visit unexmedia.com for more information. The book is available at Amazon. And we're back. I'm Margie Kay. This is UNX News on the KUNX Digital Broadcasting Network. My guest this evening is Constance Victoria Briggs. And Constance, you have had a fascinating life, fascinating story. I wonder, of course, why don't you give us an outline of what your latest book covers?
Right. So I hope you can still hear me okay. I was
Yes.
moving around. You're okay. So basically, my latest book, excuse me, I'm going to show you if you don't mind, is the Moon's Galactic History, a look at the Moon's extraterrestrial past and its connection to Earth. There it is. Yeah, so excuse me, I had written you had mentioned also the Moon Mysteries encyclopedia that I wrote, the Encyclopedia of Moon Mysteries.
Yes.
And that one was from A to Z, and people could, look up all of the weird things going on with the moon. And they wanted something more. They wanted to, people, talk to me, and they wanted to hear my voice, and they had more questions. And so I decided to tell the moon story, basically, with the new book, The Moon's Galactic History. I take people from the beginning of what I understand of where we started with the moon. I go all the way back to the moon. I call it the moon's ascension, and I talk about the idea that there was a time when there was no moon, and I come forward through that ancient history, going back to the Greeks, really, and ancient Greece, and then I come up to today. So I cover a lot of information on the moon and what I believe is extraterrestrial contact and how we're connected to it and how it affected Earth. Um, so the moon's ascension starts with that's the first chapter, and it starts with like I said, the idea that there was a time when there was no moon in the sky. There were Greek philosophers and writers and Roman writers and a few others that talked about a period when there was no moon out there. All right, and they said that the object that shined brightest in the sky was Venus. And yeah, and they said that it was this time during where the Arcadians lived. Now, the Arcadians are a group of people that these same writers said existed before even the worship of Jupiter, or going all the way back to the worship, and that was early. They're dating this back even before Samaria in Mesopotamia and Egypt, ancient Egypt, all of those great civilizations. They're saying there were these people out there running, wild, and they just lived in the wilderness, and apparently this information had been handed down, and they talked about it. So I bring I tell the moon story, and I come forward a little bit, and I talk about the Sun Gate in Bolivia that talks about a time where the moon came in. When the moon came in, there is this artifact, this monolith in Bolivia, and it is a doorway, and they call it the Sun Gate, and it's located on an area that was, they think, where they study the stars, an observatory, and this writing on it says that the moon came in, and when it did, it caused a lot of havoc on Earth. Upheavals and storms, and weather went bad and went crazy. And then when it settled, this thing was there. And so I personally feel like we have to look at all evidence from our past if we're ever going to figure out who we are, why we're here, and our extraterrestrial connection to the stars. I think we have to look at all information, not what we're just being told today, but the past too, especially people who lived so far out, so far back.
Certainly. Yeah.
We have that limited information because things like the Library of Alexandria, were destroyed, that probably had records of all of Earth's origins, of human origins. It's been destroyed. So we have to examine it all. So my book goes into that. And then, I come forward in history, and I talk about I talk about if the moon is a spaceship, or you can call it a mega structure. If it is, then why is it here? Who brought it here? I look at that kind of thing. Is it a generation ship? Meaning, is it here with a group of beings in it that came across the universe and took many years to get here, and they lived in there, and are they still there now? Why did they come? Was it only to stabilize Earth, or were they themselves running from something? Could these be beings that were trying to escape their own world because of a catastrophe? Did they leave their ship, the moon, and come to Earth? We have so many reports of humanoid extraterrestrials, and so many reports of people having contact with these beings that look so human that they said they could live right next door to us and we wouldn't know it. Were they on there, or is it a more commonly known species that we call the Greys, or is it them? So I cover that. I also look at other things that could be going on up there, because we have found structures on the moon. All right. I mean, by now, if you follow this kind of phenomena, most of No, there's structures on the moon. Now, not
Yeah,
I.
we've got a question,
Yeah.
Constance, in the chat. Do you have an opinion of the alleged photos of the alleged pyramids, towers, and buildings on the moon that NASA supposedly has?
Yes. Okay. So this is my opinion, and I was just going to get into that.
Right.
So, I've seen a lot of those photos. They say, "Oh, NASA tried to hide this, and NASA tried to hide that." But if they did, a lot of things still have gotten through. And all you have to do is Google structures on the moon and go to images, and all kinds of things pop up. Pyramids pop up. Pyramids pop up. Buildings pop up. Ships hovering above the moon and in the craters pop up.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So if they were trying to cover it up, they didn't do such a very good job, because I didn't make it up. People didn't, make up these pictures. They're there. Where do I think they came from? So in the moon's galactic history, I talk about our possible connection. Um, okay, there's two answers. There was a time in our history, according to some traditions, that we have the ability to fly into outer space. All right. Well, in the Indian writings, they talk about the gods flying into outer space, and that humans were very familiar with aerial phenomena. So when I've looked at some of the structures on the moon, and other people who've written books talked about it, sometimes those structures look very much like what we had here in ancient times. They have found monoliths on the moon, they look like the pyramids, the pyramid of Washington, D.C., cuspids. All right.
Mm-hmm.
They have taken pictures. Lunar Orbiter took a picture. One of the lunar orbiters took a picture of a pyramid. One of the Apollo missions took another picture of a pyramid that looked just like the pyramid of Giza. So how is that? I think that we had some sort of connection of going back and forth. Once that moon came in and it was here for a long period of time, we may have been traveling back and forth between Earth and the moon. We had some sort of advanced technology, maybe brought here by extraterrestrials, unless mankind had come to a point in technology where we had it, and then due to catastrophe, maybe we were destroyed and started again. But anyway, we had some transportation. It said the Hindu scriptures say that they could go from Earth to the moon and beyond. So maybe there was that back and forth, and that's why the structures look so similar. And there's also an Atlantis connection, where Atlantis, of course, as we know, was said to have had be technologically advanced, and they had a connection to the moon. And some believe that maybe there's one tale that says that they had a territory on the moon. Now, those are intact ancient structures I just mentioned. However, there are structures up there that look like they have been blown to bits. And there's been a couple of writers that talked about it in their books, that it looks like from the pictures that there was some kind of destruction that happened. Now, if you look at the moon's craters, you can see that some of them look like they were meteorites, but also some of them look like nuclear blasts. And if you look at Earth, like there are some places around Earth, some in South America, for example, they discovered some ancient cities in the jungles that looked like they had been bombed. And they're opening up Mars. We're looking at Mars now, and some of those pictures look like things have just been, shattered. So the question there is, was there a connection to the moon and those structures, that were bombed? Were we in a war with each other? Was there a kind of Star Wars, or were we all fighting together some kind of unknown foe? But it does look like there was some kind of nuclear bombed occasion where we and the moon and perhaps Mars were fighting. Now, who put the structures on the moon? Besides, the ancients, there are also structures that look like they're inside of the craters. I was talking about the surface, but we're also talking about inside craters.
Mm-hmm.
Today, astronomers are saying that they're finding what looks like structures in the craters that are coming up today. People are looking at Google Moon.
That they're new structures,
Right,
that
new
have
structures.
appeared. Mm-hmm.
There's a city, a metropolis up there, and that may be hidden from us, but that's not even working very well because they're reporting it. And also, I've seen pictures of what looks like fleets of spacecraft leaving the moon, leaving the inside of the moon. There could be
Mm-hmm.
beings inside the moon that are also operating on the outside of the moon, or there could be, more than one type of extraterrestrial up there. But these spaceships are, UFOs or whatever the word you want to use for them, I think they're ships, are leaving, and I wonder where they're going. Are they coming to Earth? Are they going to other areas in the solar system? I think some of them are coming to Earth. And so are we being watched? Is it like I put this in my book, is it like a kind of a duck blind where, there is camouflage so that we can't see them watching us and what we do? And if the moon was brought in, all the eons ago, where are those beings now? Did some come here and they're watching over their own people and they're still there?
Mm-hmm. Or are they us?
Are they us?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yes, I have that too. And is there a city inside the moon? Now, somebody said that Earth is looks like it's inside out because really we should probably be living on the inside because of the radiation from the sun and all of the catastrophes. It would be safer to be inside our planet, and maybe that's what's going on with the moon. But it certainly does look like
there's some evidence that the Earth is hollow and there are people living inside
yes.
of the center.
Mhm.
Now, what do you know about the dark side of the moon? Is there any difference between that and the light side of the moon, the side we see?
Um, the surface looks different. It's about all I can say as far as how it looks. There seems to be more meteor bombardment there. But people are, if you're referring to bases and extraterrestrials, people say, oh, I think that there's bases on the far side of the moon. Yeah, there could be bases on the far side of the moon. But if you ask me, we're seeing stuff on the, on the front side too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it really makes any difference. They seem to be all over the place.
It
Now,
would make sense if they need if they need
right,
sunlight, for power or for, growing plants or something. You'd think they would need
right.
sunlight.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean, they say, oh, they're hiding back there. They don't want us to see what they're doing. Well, we do see. We see things all the time. Uh, it's just that most people don't know it. If I went next door and knocked on my neighbor's door, they would say, what in the world are you talking about? There's no one on the moon. There's nothing going on with the
Yeah.
moon. But yeah, I think that there's bases on the dark side. I think there's bases on the far side. I think there's a city all over the moon. I will tell you that a story of one of the Apollo missions when they first traveled all the way around the moon and they got to that, it's called the far side or the dark side, but the far side of the moon. And they call it the far side because all of the moon gets light at some point. But um, yeah, so the astronauts were going around and they started hearing sounds. So when they got to the far side, they were out of earshot of mission control. They lost connection because they're so
Right.
far away. But they started hearing something. And it sounded like, they called it space music, although it wasn't really music. There were strange noises. And they talked about it. You've got transcripts of the astronauts talking. And they said, do you hear that noise? It's like, woo, woo. Did you hear that? What is that? Should we tell anybody about it? And people said they won't believe it. They were picking up something back there, something strange, something unusual. So if you're asking if there's something back there, yeah, there's something back there. That's the one thing that I can say from that. They picked up some kind of signals, and then they didn't come back and report it. They found that in a recording like years later. But yeah, I think that is there's something going on all over the moon.
What do you know about the Chinese connection to the moon, that the ancient Chinese have been on the moon for centuries?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't know much about the ancient Chinese. I mean, I just know the Chinese have sent up probes, and they came back with some interesting stories. They saw, some. One of them saw a UFO that was changing color, and it was just pretty amazing. And But that's all I know. I don't know anything I have to say about ancient Chinese in the moon,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Have you spoken to any remote viewers who have taken a look at the moon and found anything interesting?
I have not personally talked to any remote viewers. I would love to. I haven't. I have looked for them, but I couldn't get to them in time with my book deadline. The only remote viewer that I have ever talked about, of course, was Ingo Swann, which most people know about, who did go up there and he did remote view the moon. He didn't go up. He remote viewed the moon, and he saw humanoids on the moon, and they were naked, and they were working, and looked like they were building, I believe, a laser. And he saw factories. He saw some pretty amazing stuff up there. If you're not familiar with Ingo Swann, he was a few years back. He was the world's most prominent, proficient remote viewer, and he was recruited by a secret government and taken to a secret location and asked to remote view the moon. He was given coordinates because obviously there's someone up there. And they wanted more information, and that was one of the ways of doing it.
Well, he did a lot of things for the government. Yeah. Carl asks if I have remote viewed the dark side of the moon, and yes, I have. And I see during one session I saw an opening up and a spaceship going into it, and then it closing. Similar to what we're seeing with our mountains here. Got another question. A satellite was slammed into the moon by NASA recently. In your opinion, was that an experiment to see if water was there, as NASA said, or was it an attack mission?
Well, when they did this, I think that was 2009, right? And they had already discovered that the moon had water. I don't even know why they said that. And I had people contacting me and said, we've already found water up there. Why are they saying that? I think that they were trying to cover up build some structures really before. I mean, this is my guess, it's my speculation that there are things up there that they don't want other governments to find, perhaps, and that may have been some of it. They know there's structures up there. I have a little book here. I always show this whenever I go on a show. Tying into the question, this is the NASA Lunar Technical Report. You can get it on Amazon, and this taught me basically it is a report of strange things that NASA had knew about on the moon. Okay, and it was classified at one time. They declassified it, and I heard that they regret it. But they knew, and they know that there are things on the moon. All right, and there are things up there that they may not want to share with other people. And that could be because of security. It doesn't mean that they're being mean or trying to be secretive. They just may think, you know how men, I don't mean men, I mean humankind thinks everything has to be bombed, destroyed, and blown up. That may be their way of trying to secure information. But I think they were after something. I think it was some buildings up there, maybe.
Goodness.
Just my guess, guys.
Since you've been doing this work, all of this research and writing, have you had any contact by anybody in the government or anybody asking you not to continue doing this work?
No, I don't think they care. I mean, the stuff that I'm talking about isn't classified, you know. Um, it's out there. It's on, it's not anything. I mean, if I were a government worker, I think they might have concern. I don't have anything like that in my background. So I don't think so. I think there are people who are writing secretive a lot more secretive things than I am. So no, I haven't been approached. And from what I'm hearing, especially since they have come out with all of this information about the Tic Tacs, um, I'm hearing maybe they would like a little help getting information out there because it looks like something is coming our way. And my brother tells me, they're just not being as secretive about things anymore. It looks like a lot of people are talking, including people from the government. So no, I haven't been approached. I don't really think they care. There's a lot of information out there on the moon.
Is there anything about the moon in its past that would be suspicious, like it changing orbit or not being in the right place at the right time? I've had several people tell me that they have seen a double moon where they'll see two moons and they don't think it's a lens flare. I mean, they're looking at it with the naked eye. Just like some people have seen a double sun or a big sun and then one next to it. But things like that, or where they see the moon in one place and then a few minutes later it's in another part of the sky altogether. Have you had
Wow.
any reports like that?
No. Well, okay. Not people reporting to me. I've seen information about double moons, and I don't know what's going on with that. And interestingly enough, I have a lot of strange information, in my book. That's not one of them. I have no clue what that could be about.
Hmm.
It's pretty unnerving,
Yeah,
but I
oh,
just
it is.
don't know. I
It's
don't know.
it's very strange.
I've never seen anything like that.
Yeah, I've had some weird reports. So, um, what are we just have a couple more minutes left in our time. So,
Okay.
what would be the top strangest structures or things about the moon that you would want people to know about?
I have a favorite story, guys, um, and that is I call it the boxed structure story. The Apollo 17 astronauts went up, and they saw what they a rectangular type shaped building that was the color and the material of the moon surface. All right. And they were riding their little, I call it the rover, the little dune buggy rover thingy, these two astronauts. And they come upon this thing. And Walter Cronkite was narrating this. And he said, as they were coming closer and the camera saw this structure, Walter Cronkite said, that something like that looks like a man-made building or man-made structure or something like that, he said. And the feed to Earth was cut.
Mm.
The astronaut saw something, and it took 20 minutes to get it reestablished. And when they came back, they told Cronkite that the little dune buggy the camera on it had accidentally taken a picture of itself.
Uh-huh.
But there are people today that were watching that still talk about seeing a structure on the moon. I say, I mean, that's one of my favorite stories. It's in my Moon Mysteries book, and I say that I think there is a city on the moon, and there are people on the moon, and that explains a lot of what we see today by way of course, the UFOs, the strange lights. I didn't even get into strange lights being seen on the moon since at least since going back to the telescope, creating of the telescope. They've been seeing lights moving across the moon, surface of the moon, objects
Mm-hmm.
moving. With all of those things are coming from beings, I believe, that live on the moon. Even today, they're saying that it looks like there are craters with lights parked around them, and like maybe ships are lined up. That's the
Yeah.
takeaway, that we're not alone in the universe. That's what I preach. And we didn't get very far out there before we ran into somebody.
Well, that's a good note to end on. Thank you so much, Constance Victoria Briggs, for spending some time with me this evening. And
Thanks for having me.
where can people get the book?
Amazon. Amazon is the
All right.
number one place to get everything, I think, right?
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for joining me this evening. I'm Margie Kay. I'll see you here again next week.